What are you doing here? Ah! 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 Ah!
Wow. I don't really know what to say. I knew about Sweet Home for quite a while, but never got around to playing it. Sometime in early 2021, I acquired a complete in-box reproduction copy of the game from Flashback Entertainment, and I decided, let's play it for Bits and Glory's first annual Bits and Glory October, and boy, was I impressed. Sweet Home is a survival horror / RPG that was developed and published by Capcom, released only in Japan on December 15th of 1989. But for the purpose of this review, we will be playing an English translated version on the NES, utilizing the aforementioned Flashback Entertainment package. Sweet Home is based on a Japanese horror film of the same name, and a lovely Twitter follower of mine pointed it out that I could watch a free version of it with subtitles on YouTube, which I will certainly be doing in October. For reference, I'm doing this review in September. But the interesting origins / inspiration don't stop there. Sweet Home is considered the main inspiration behind Resident Evil. In fact, when Resident Evil was originally developing, it was intended to be a remake of Sweet Home. It was seen as kind of a way to enhance it further, obviously with new hardware, but from what I understand, Capcom didn't have the license to the IP anymore, and we ended up getting what we got in Resident Evil, which isn't too bad, right? When you compare the two games, I'm sure you could see the similarities between them, if you've played. Not only are there nods to Resident Evil 1, but there's also nods to other games in the series, such as Resident Evil 0 with item management, quick-time events such as those in Resident Evil 4, and in ways the film crew angle is similar to that of one of the storylines in the Baker House in Resident Evil 7. Well, anyway, enough Resident Evil talk, right? Sweet Home primarily revolves around a famous artist named Ishiro Mamiya, who had several frescoes hidden around his mansion before disappearing under mysterious circumstances. You take control of a team of 5 documentary filmmakers that go in to document and recover said frescoes in the mansion. Upon entering, they are trapped by an unknown ghost woman who we later find out is that of Lady Mamiya, Ichiro's wife, and learn of the grisly backstory of their son falling into an incinerator and burning alive. This then leads Lady Mamiya into killing other children to give her son ghost playmates, and then killing herself. Jesus Christ. I'm not kidding. That's the story. Shocked it never made it to America? Aside from the dark as all hell backstory and plot, Sweet Home is memorable for many reasons. The main gist of the gameplay revolves around item and inventory management and utilizing tools that are specific to each character. For example, Akiko natively has the Plus Kit, which heals status ailments, Asuka has the Vacuum, which can clean frescoes and suck up debris, Emi has a Master Key of sorts, which opens certain doors, Kazuo has a Lighter, which can burn ropes, light candles, and damage enemies, and lastly, Taro has the Camera, which is used to damage some enemies, but most importantly, document and get messages from Ichiro's frescoes. You are also able to find variations of these characters' specific tools throughout the mansion, so you're not necessarily locked into being just whomever to light a candle, because you could fight matches, or clean up debris because you could also find a broom, just for some examples. Now, where it gets pretty unique is the fact that you're only able to have a party of 3 as a max party. You will be spending the majority of the game with one group of 3 and one group of 2, and occasionally splitting up and going solo. What makes this interesting is twofold. First, having more strength in numbers makes battles easier, and secondly, certain characters might have certain items that others don't, and you'll need to use them in certain spots, which leads to the aforementioned Resident Evil 0 reference of inventory and item management. Needing to lay down an item somewhere for later, swap the items between characters, or whatever the case may be. I did want to point out that while you might be split into a group of 3 and 2, during a battle, you actually can call your missing teammates over, and that way you can get experience for each person. And it's also a way for the other group to catch up a little bit quicker. Continuing on with the battling aspects with the groups, it's very important. Is battling hard? Not really if you're smart, but the thing to take note of is, there's permadeath. That's right, when a character dies, unless you reset, they stay dead, and this plays heavily into the game's multiple endings. Also, healing is finite. There are items called tonics littered throughout the mansion which could heal your characters, however they are not infinite. You cannot buy them, and a character does not natively know something like a heal spell, so you can't be overly sloppy. Which, if you couldn't already assume based off of what I just said, my advice is to save often, and don't be afraid to save scum if you find yourself in weird situations. Most of the inventory management strategy comes down to solving puzzles throughout the game. I find that the puzzles are interesting, fun, and not too overly complicated. For example, some frescoes are dirty. Before you take a picture, you have to clean them up with the vacuum. Another example, if a room is filled with fire that hurts your characters, you can put it out with a fire extinguisher. There's also doors that unlock with specific keys, and a litany of other puzzle goodness that I will leave for you to figure out on your own. Another interesting part of Sweet Home is the pray or praying system. Mainly this is used in battles to do super attacks, so in a way it's kind of like MP or skill points, and the pray meter can be refilled with things like tonics, or a hidden special item that you could find later in the game. It does have an alternate use though, which could help in some cool puzzle solving. I didn't utilize the prey attacks until the latter half of the game, and if I could go back I probably would have used them more, but it was a first playthrough, so what are you gonna do? Since I found the game so interesting, before diving into my typical rundown of the game, I wanted to touch back on other things like the QuickTime events, which typically revolve around things falling on you and having to move either left, right, duck, or pray to avoid them. It's pretty cool and doesn't really overstay its welcome. Also, it doesn't really overly punish you either way if you choose wrong, which is nice. There's also a system revolving around spirits that pick up characters and whisk them away to various rooms. Essentially, this brings forth some form of evasion or platforming. Ultimately, it's never much of a big deal. Most of the time, the rooms that you get sent to aren't too far away, so if anything, it's really just more of an annoyance. And lastly, I wanted to touch on the status ailments, as there are tons of these from the enemies in the game, and Akiko with her plus kit will be your best friend, or of course, you could find pills in the mansion as well, which serve as an alternative. Alright, let's break things down on a technical level. Graphically, Sweet Home is amazing. I feel the game captures the brooding horror atmosphere perfectly, and not only the RPG, movement sections, but also the wonderfully crafted battle scenes and cutscenes, some truly terrifying sprite work that is incredibly memorable and unique on the NES. Control-wise, overall it's fairly responsive, but I will say that menuing and swapping items, swapping between characters, getting your party together, it takes time. Even after playing for hours and hours, you still might find yourself misclicking or clunking around, and unfortunately, I don't think there was really much else I could have done at the time. It's definitely not this game's strong suit, but I don't hold it against it too much. Another up and down section for the game for me is its music. I find that the music overall is pretty atmospheric, however there are some areas that leave a bit to be desired or have annoying high-pitched tones, especially early on in the game. I did feel though, as you approach the lake area and beyond, that the music for the game did improve quite a bit. Overall, it's still a little bit of a mixed bag for me. But as far as the overall gameplay goes, whether it be searching, the various managements, and battling, Sweet Home kills it. I found this to be one of the more engaging and entertaining games that I've played on the NES. I was blown away by how much fun I had with it throughout the entire playthrough. Difficulty-wise, it's not too bad either. Sure, you'll make a bunch of mistakes, but that's what saving's for, right? As far as actually battling and needing to grind, it's overall pretty easy and you can reach high levels with relative ease, especially midway and beyond. There's tons of great grinding segments if need be, but you likely won't need to grind as much as native backtracking and organic gameplay will get you close to, if not where you need to be, level-wise. Sweet Home was one of the best games that I played in 2022. If it weren't for Elden Ring, I would say that this was probably the best that I have played. An extremely unique game with an insane story for the NES era, chilling atmosphere and graphics, and a fun factor that had me never wanting to turn the console off. My only gripes about Sweet Home are some of the clunky menuing or controls, some mildly annoying backtracking you will likely have to go through if you play the game blind, some semi-annoying sounds on the OST early on, and perhaps I wish the battling was slightly deeper, but I'll be honest, I'm nitpicking here. As such, I give Sweet Home on the Famicom/NES a 9.5 out of 10. This has quickly become one of my favorite NES games, and I could see having fun with this on future playthroughs, whether it be whipping through the game way faster, or handicapping yourself by killing off certain characters and trying to navigate successfully. There's just many different ways to play. If you like horror games, RPGs, or anything in that realm, you owe it to yourself to play this gem. If you've enjoyed this review, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing if you haven't already. I do my best to reply to all comments in all videos, and if you want more Sweet Home goodness, check out my playthrough and my unboxing in the pinned comment and description below. Take care.